Let's all pray together. Our Father, it is really with happiness and joy that we thank you for the gift of marriage which we celebrate today. May you give Jane and Stephen the ability to rejoice always in their love. May you fulfill every worthy wish in their hearts. May you open their eyes to the beauty and the mystery of the love that they hold for each other every day, just as today. And may their life together embrace and nurture the promise of this union, so that all who know them will call them truly blessed. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Stephen, I'd like for you to take about half a step back away from each other just for a minute and look at this beautiful woman. Isn't she beautiful?
Yes.
I'm glad you answered that question. And Jane, I've known Stephen for a long time, but I've never seen him really look like this positive. I'd like, in fact, why don't you just turn around and give the audience just a facial peek. Just turn around. In fact, they look so good, I think it's time for a little selfie. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now, y'all know that some of you know that I used to be a photographer for many years for weddings, and so it's natural for me to take that first one. Well, the countdown is over. All those days, just a few more days to wake up. And some of us have been waiting for this for a long time, haven't we? For those who don't know, I met Stephen as one of my students in 2 classes. And we were much more closely aligned when we were together for more than 12 semesters in Harding University, Greece, where we lived and we worked and we ate and we traveled, and we were all together all the time. We had so many experiences. So Beth and I know Stephen very well. And Jane became the queen of our hearts with her debut at Hug in the fall of 13. What a great semester it was. And some of these folks are here with us today that were in that group. They have become our favorites, and they are more like family than anything else. Well, if you've been on Stephen and Jane's cheer team for a while, you know that they've had several false starts along the way as well. One would try to get the other to hang out, but it would fall through. This happened back and forth until Stephen was just about to give up, I think, and move along. Then one day, Jane was in the honors house where I served as dean, having lunch with Savannah. And after that lunch, they went next door to visit Stephen for a few minutes. And after talking, Jane was just about to step out of Stephen's office when she leaned back in and said, "We should get dinner sometime." Stephen, you remember that comment pretty well, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
They had dinner a few days later, and at the end of the night, 4 hours later, Stephen said, "Am I going to have to wait another year before another date?" Well, Stephen and Jane have a lot of fun together as well. They love to play games like bowling and mini golf. Jane has been known to throw a strike on her first throw of the day, and Stephen has his own celebratory hole-in-one dance. Now, I'm really anxious to see that, maybe whenever we get to the reception, see if he's got one of those he can show us. They're always competitive because the loser, it seems, has to pay for dinner at Sonic for the loser of that. They both laugh about a time that Stephen, in fact, Steve mentioned this last night a little bit. They both laugh about a time when Stephen wanted to go shoe shopping, of all things. Well, that's a big surprise because Stephen really doesn't enjoy shopping like most of us guys do. And guess what? Jane does like to go shopping. So when Stephen told Jane he wanted to go to Little Rock one night to go for dinner and shoe shopping, needless to say, Jane was excited, but a little surprised as well. After picking 2 pairs of shoes and kind of looking at a third pair, expert shopper Jane here looked at some coupons and figured out it would be actually cost less to buy all 3 pairs. And while that shopping trip was really all about Stephen getting a pair of shoes, we're all pretty sure that Jane got the bigger secondhand shopping experience. In Jane's own words, it's the only time I've been good at math. So Well, in the summer of 2019, Stephen was still in Greece, and they decided to stay a week after his job ended so Jane could fly over and they could travel together. They went to many favorite places in Athens and the Peloponnese, and even some amazing new places, you know, if you've traveled over in that part of the country. It was a great way for them to see what life would be like living together and traveling together, and it was so special because they found out all during that trip, they listened to the Hamilton soundtrack, and they had an appointment to see Hamilton, I think, that next month in Memphis. Stephen has already tested the in sickness and in health part of marriage by spending his first 7 or 8 months of their dating relationship dealing with health problems that made him stay at home most of the time. And if you know Jane, she doesn't like staying still too often. I think it was then that Stephen really noticed and was clamped in his mind that Jane was something very, very special because she was so patient and she was so loving and so kind and faithful from day one and was always happy to just spend an evening watching a movie. Stephen and Jane already have a Christmas tradition. Each year, since they started dating, they have a date night where they go out and enjoy the Opryland Hotel lights. That's Jane's hometown. It's a favorite that they're going to be missing this year, unless you've got some other plans I don't know about. But you're gladly replacing it with a wedding.
Yes.
But really, the count that I mentioned a while ago is now just beginning, but it's going forward. Those friends and family that are all sitting behind you here know how many years and months and days that each of them have been married. It was when, as they joined as a couple as well. And many of them, if you looked out, you could see in the audience, were probably still holding hands and at this very minute. Well, it seems like just yesterday, doesn't it, audience, whenever you were married for that time. But whether you've been married for years, like Steve and Jennifer have been married for 4 decades, or whether it's been a short time, like Drew and Mary Ansley have been married for 4 months. Well, it's really just a time and place that will always, always be remembered. Once a philosopher, Frederick Buechner, said, "In the entire history of the universe, let alone in your own history, there has never been another day just like today. And there will never be another day just like it again. Today is the point to which all your yesterdays have been leading since the hour of your birth. It is the point from which all your tomorrows will proceed until the hour of your death. If you were aware of how precious today is, you could hardly live through it. Unless you were aware of how precious it is, you can hardly be said to be living at all." Well, this group behind you, this special group that behind you is here today to witness and to celebrate the holy and the legal civil union of Jane Carrier Vanderburg and Stephen Cecil Chandler Jr. I'm not sure all of you even knew that he had a middle name. And we support you in that commitment that you share with each other. Together, we, and that's all of us in this audience, and your bridesmaids and groomsmen, are very special in that you have chosen them for this role. Together, we are going to share with you in this moment. And you've invited us here to share in that witness in that moment. Today, you're going to start a new union with eternal bonds. Well, they've already got a house. But they're going to start a new home. A home is not so much a place as it is a state of being. But Jane and Stephen, you cannot create the state of being on your own. A home where love abides in the family and the family abides in love is a sheer gift that only God can give. A home where a family shares what this love produces: compassion and kindness, humility and patience and forgiveness. Such a home is based on nothing less than the gospel of Jesus Christ. What a wonderful, wonderful present that God is giving both of you 5 days early. Marriage gives permanence and structure to your love. It's a way to tell each other that no matter how much you snore, if you do, or how much you spend out on the shopping mall, which you might go out, we're still in this together. Marriage is a way to tell each other that I'm here to stay and I'm here to love you forevermore. And that's a powerful, powerful commitment for two people to make to one another. A good marriage must be built on the foundation of that commitment. But to last, it must have more. The assurance that God is number one in your life. Jade, even though you love Stephen with all your heart, he must be second to God for you. And Stephen, your great love and affection for sweet Jane needs to be eclipsed by your love for Jesus. Well, that's the formula, and it is so simple. Love each other with all your hearts, but love God more. Well, everyone that's married will give you suggestions for a happy life. Sometimes in marriage, the little things are the big things that keep your love bright. It's never too old to hold hands. It's remembering to say, I love you every day. It's not going to sleep angry. It's whispering words of appreciation and showing gratitude in very special ways. It's learning to forgive and forget. It's not only marrying the right person, it is being the right person. Well, I know you two love each other, and from the evidence of many years of observation, I think you also like each other. Well, Jimmy Stewart was an actor before your time, and he played the part of a dad in a Civil War era movie that some of you may recall called Shenandoah. Stephen always loves my movie suggestions, I know. And maybe you'll want to go out and get this after it's over. Well, when young Sam came courting his daughter, Stewart asked him, Sam, do you like her? He said, yes, of course I love her. Stewart said, no. You just said you loved her. There's some difference between loving and liking. When I married Jenny's mother, I didn't love her. I liked her. I liked her a lot. I liked Martha for at least 3 years after we were married, and then one day it just dawned on me that I loved her. I still do. You see, Sam, when you love a woman without liking her, the night can be long and cold, and contempt comes up with the sun. Well, we're happy that you two both like each other as well. When Stephen left Greece in 2015, one of the employees of the Greek campus, Yana, some of you know Yana, wanted to cross-stitch his favorite verse for him in Greek. Without hesitation and not wanting to ask Yana to stitch 7 verses for him, Stephen asked for her to use Hebrews 11:10 from his favorite passage from that piece. In this section, which is famously known as the Hall of Faith, the author of Hebrews described people from the Old Testament and the actions they took by faith. Abraham was a sojourner in a distant land, displaced, but with his eyes fixed on the promises that were yet to come. Here's the context of the verse Yana stitched for Stephen, Hebrews 10:8-10 and 13-16. By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, he made his home in the promised land, like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on the earth. People who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. Well, Jane and Stephen don't know what the future holds for them or what it will look like, but they do know who holds the future and what has been promised to them. Stephen told Jana that this cross-stitch piece would be the very first thing he hung in every house he lived in as a way to sanctify their home. Since leaving Greece, he has kept true to his word, and it's been the first thing hung in the 3 houses that he's lived in. And Stephen and Jane do not plan to ever stop using this tradition. Well, Stephen and Jane, at some point, you started talking about marriage. From even before that magic moment of maybe a knee-bent question and the answer yes that happened on June 10th of this year, you've been making promises and agreements in a kind of an informal way. All those conversations you had riding in a car or over meals or long walks, all those sentences starting with when we're married and continued with I will and you will and we will, those late night talks that included someday and somehow and maybe, all of those culminated with this very important covenant that you're going to express today. Legally, of course, it's a formal document that's enforced by laws and the courts. But more importantly, it's an agreement you make with each other and with God. Let's now have the rings.